What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and we're live for another episode here. Finally, we're doing this properly. It is preview time. We are on the eve of Geelong playing their first game of the season, this time against Freo, as opposed to Brisbane, like we initially expected to be the case. And there's a bit to go through. We've got a live game right now. We've got a whole bunch of Q&A things we've got planned. The show tonight consists of a few key beats that we want to discuss, but all of that centers around the game coming up. So we're going to talk about the team selection that's come out for Geelong and for Fremantle going into this week. We're going to kind of explore some of the ins, the outs, the new faces, all of those sorts of key details. We're going to get into a larger match preview focusing on the Geelong and Fremantle match and what we should expect in that regard. We're going to focus on a player spotlight where we'll talk a bit about Gryan Miers and what we should expect from him over the course of season 2025. Q&A, where we'll focus on a whole range of different topics, including the recent news of Brad Close signing on for 3 years, that Shannon Neal is close, and a whole bunch of other topics as well. Some related to Geelong, others competition-wide. And a new segment that I'm introducing that focuses on another pet subject of my own at the very end there. But before we get into everything, we also want to make sure we take a moment to acknowledge our sponsor, Cyril Cook Florist. More on them later in the show. Very excited to get into it. Awesome to see Lockie Miller already popping into the chat there, and I presume others as well. Ben's going. There's Jared. Lots more people I'm looking forward to chatting to over the course of the show. Good to see that the comments are working tonight. Thank you to everyone who tolerated the myriad number of technical issues that we had on on Sunday night from my mic, which hopefully isn't having any issues tonight, to the StreamYard chat, which is up and running. Like, everything seems to be working so far tonight, but please, chat, keep me in the loop if there are any problems. Big Galoop, just to address your question, unable to get into KO. No, I'm not having that problem. I've got the game kind of on my split onto my screen right now, and I'm not having any issues with it at all. But because right now I can see that Richmond are 2-1-13 to Carlton 7-7-49. I'd expect Carlton to be further ahead at this point. But that's par for the course with Carlton. They continue to disappoint their fans. With 5 minutes to go in the second quarter. But yeah, KO is working for me. Hopefully it will be for you nice and soon. All right, let's get into the show tonight. We are light on for graphics. We are keeping things very, very simple. And we are going to now look at, and I'll make sure I get the right game here because I have had all the details for the current matchup, the Carlton and Richmond match. I've had that on my screen for a little while. I need to bounce back to the all-important match for us as Cats fans, which is, of course, Geelong and Fremantle lineups. Let's bring it up right now and hope that everything is working. It is. Let's look at the two teams, mostly focusing, of course, on the Cats and what we should expect in that regard. So there's some new faces. Of course, Bailey Smith is making his debut for the Cats. That'll be his Geelong debut, of course. They've got him listed on the wing. Oh, look at that. Richmond kicked a goal. Will he spend most of his game on the wing? I doubt it, simply because the main pitch to him when he joined the Cats was around in the guts midfield minutes. But really, this is just a team sheet, so no stress in that particular regard. In terms of other players that are returning to the team that weren't present with our last match, the prelim final, of course, we missed out on our round 0 match due to the cyclone. Sam De Koning is back in. Connor O'Sullivan is returning. Mitch Nevitt is back. Jai Clark and Mark O'Connor all returned to the lineup. You can see that O'Sullivan, I should say, is listed there in the back pocket. We've got skimming through. Obviously, Bailey Smith is the new face on the wing. Skimming through. Sam De Koning in the ruck. Oisin Mullen, Mark O'Connor, Jai Clark, and Mitch Nevitt all listed there on the bench, with our emergencies for the day being Ted Closey, Mitch Duncan, and Reece Stanley. And I have seen some comments. I don't know about whether the chat's doing it. I've scrubbed away from there for a moment. But I've seen some people, speculating it might be a bit of a tough road. I think I saw Kingy from K-Rock also talking about it. It might be a really tough road for Mitch Duncan from here if he's not getting selected for round 1. And he's obviously got a few games ahead of him to get to game 300, that it might be a bit of a tough road for him from here. But We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. It's a long season ahead, and he's a legend of the Cats, and I hope that he does get his 300th game. But there are some challenges before him, I guess, when it comes to selection. On the Freo side, there's some interesting players selected as well that we'll talk about in a little bit more detail shortly. Right now, it's all about the Cats and what we're seeing there. So we've got some outs from that prelim final team as well. Zach Tui, and who's retired, Jed Buse, Tanner Bruin, Jake Cole-Jasny, who are all injured. Sean Manor, who's he's listed as being he's being managed. The reality, I think, in that case, he's technically available, but they're going to look after that foot, maybe give him an extra week or two, make sure it is 100% right to go before they return him. Geelong has long been known to be quite conservative, I guess, in its approach to bringing players back in from injury. It's something that can frustrate, I think, other supporters of other teams. But is that Richmond kicking another goal? They did too. Look at this. Carlton, you're blowing it. I tipped you by 50 points. But yeah, Geelong's long been known to be pretty conservative in its approach, and I've always appreciated it. I think it frustrates other teams when we see late changes and all of those sorts of things. But I think in terms of making sure that we've got our best team available at the key points of the year, take it easy and make sure they're 100% right to go. So I've got no problem with Sean Manor being out and Reece Stanley, who is out, omitted as well. We've obviously touched on the interchange a little bit there. Ollie Henry, O'Sheen Mullen, Mark O'Connor, Jai Clark, and Mitch Nevitt. One of those will have to be the sub. My guess, and I am only guessing, is Mullen. I think developmentally he's the least developed in his role within the team. I can see him and O'Connor playing similar-ish sorts of roles at different stages. One might even play a tagging role, which I think, we'll talk a bit more about it when it comes to the match preview, but I think there's potentially an avenue there where one of those two get used in a tagging role, the one who stays on, the other on the bench there maybe comes in a more defensive role later on. But yeah, I guess that's a really interesting one in terms of how we work the sub in this particular case, or who the sub happens to be, because it's a tricky one. There's no obvious candidates, I would say. My gut says Mullen, but it's just my gut. The emergencies, as I mentioned before, Ted Closey, Mitch Duncan, and Reece Stanley. We're kind of, spreading the field a little bit there. We've got Mitch Duncan, who's kind of played defensive and midfield roles. We've got Ted Closey, who's been more mid to forward, and then Reece Stanley as a ruckman. It is interesting that Reece Stanley is there. I'm wondering if there's the possibility of a late change, and I don't really think there'll be a late change. I think round one, you try and keep things pretty solid. You've probably made a few promises to some of these blokes who haven't got many games. And you probably want to honour those promises. But maybe depending on matchups, the way they look at the Freo list that's now available, maybe they determine that Sam DeConing could be better used as a key defender, allowing Reece Stanley to come in and play in the ruck role. I'm spitballing. I don't think that'll necessarily play out, but I think that there is... there's some possibilities there. To Amy's point, I'll quickly pin Amy's comment in the chat here. Scotty seemed to say that Bailey doesn't just want to play mid, and he's surprised to hear that narrative. I think people have gotten carried away with it, and I hope that I didn't sound like I was getting carried away with it there either. Because, yeah, firstly, that has been said. That was kind of said even through the off-season period, it was more about, well, we have a midfield blend. We have players rolling through and mixing it up. And Bailey absolutely sounds like he does want to spend more time in the guts. That was his big thing over at the Dogs. But I think he has to know, and I think I've discussed on various different shows over the course of the last few months, that whilst that's the case, I think he needs to accept the fact that he's also highly skilled in the wing role and as a half-forward flank, in that more attacking sort of role, more goal-bound sort of role. I've got no concerns that he's going to spend a bit of time in the middle, in the heart of it, but also a little bit on the outside. You've got multiple strengths there that we want to take advantage of. But thank you, Amy, for bringing it up, because I think it's a good point of conversation. We'll obviously have some proof in the pudding as of this Saturday, beginning at 1:20. Beyond those injuries, we do have some other notable exclusions here, being Jack Martin, Sean Manor, who we've discussed already, Ted Closey, who we've discussed already, Mitch Edwards, and Jay Polkinghorn. Obviously, with a fairly strong team that we've got, I can understand pretty much why all of these guys haven't gotten a game. Jack Martin, they're absolutely kind of looking after him and making sure and managing his body and getting him right to go. I think I heard an interview with Andrew Mackey that I think was on SEN potentially over the course of the week, where he spoke about how they're not rushing him. Like they're genuinely thinking maybe after a month he might come in. They're not looking to push him too fast or too hard, and I think that's a good thing in terms of getting his body right for the long term. So we'll see how all that plays out. Ted Closey obviously is there as an emergency. He's going to be kicking the door down a lot this year, and I think we'll come very close and we'll get more than a few games. I think the Geelong leadership really like what he brings, and it's just about developing that consistency and having the right opportunities emerge for him. And when he does get those opportunities, grabbing the ball by the horns. Mitch Edwards, obviously, in the ruck situation, if he continues to improve the way it sounds like he has in this off-season, I don't see a reason why he wouldn't necessarily going to get an opportunity to move into that emergency role and potentially even a crack in the ruck as the season plays out. But it'll be a horses for courses thing. It might be one of those scenarios where we're playing they're making a decent fist of it right now, but playing a Richmond or someone like that where you're not too fearful of the outcome. Maybe you've got some players with some niggles and that's the opportunity to switch him in. I don't see it happening anytime soon. Well, Jay Polkinghorne as our number one pick from the draft, the most recent draft, has been doing all of the right things. All the reports, whenever you hear players getting interviewed, you hear, the media will ask, okay, well, who's the player, like the new face that's really lighting it up? And of course, outside of Bailey Smith, people keep talking about Jay Polkinghorne and specifically his marking ability, which was the thing that he was so heavily touted for when he was selected in the first place. So, Ben's provided me this list, but I do think he's one that's going to be, with a few more opportunities, he's going to be starting to kick the door down in the next couple of weeks. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plays out for him. And I hope that he gets to get a debut at some point. It'd be really nice to see those. We're always looking to see new faces roll through the team, develop the future as well as the present, and kind of give the opportunities to the past. I've got no issues with it. And hopefully he gets a game nice and soon. All right. Let's talk about Freo a little bit here, and I guess some notable absentees. Of course, there's a big bloke who plays in the ruck that is not there. We've been interested in him for a couple of years at this particular point, but it's never seemed to have worked out. And I've just gone completely blank on his name, and I know the chat's going to sort me out before I can even resolve this properly myself. But Sean Darcy. Sean Darcy's out as well. Some other notable absentees who've been discussed specifically this week, players that I think most had expected to rock up in Michael Walters and Shea Bolton, who are not getting a game this week. Both are nursing some injuries and need a little bit of time. Thank you, Jared. I think we probably got to that name all in sync. I was stalling, trying to get the name in my head. As this season plays out, the names will start to stick more and more. Just got to get my brain into gear again. It's been a long time away from this game. But yeah, Sean Darcy, obviously, we've shown a bit of interest in him over the years. He's not playing through injury. You then go and toss Shea Bolton and Michael Walters, and certainly they're going to be, I guess, a little bit depleted in the elite small forward stocks specifically. So I guess how they shape up, how they decide to utilize the assets they've got. And they've still got some guns in the area, like Sam Switkowski and Michael Frederick in particular, really quite talented in that regard. And then they've got some decent tools with, you look at the way they've listed their full forward line, which is obviously not how they're going to line up, I would imagine. But with Luke Jackson, Josh Tracy, and Jai Amos, that's some height. And I think they're going to look to stretch us there. And it is why, when I go back to my comments about Sam De Koning before and Reece Stanley, I do think that there is a possibility, albeit there is a possibility, I think, that Reece Stanley comes in, Sam De Koning goes back, just to give us that little bit of extra height. Because if you think about our key defensive stocks, O'Sullivan is the right sort of height profile, but he's obviously got a developing body. He's quite inexperienced. Jack Henry is, his biggest challenge has always been those really big, like tall beanpole players, because he's a great defender, but he's just not super, super tall. Mark Blitzarves is there or thereabouts with the height. And then you've got Zach Guthrie, Tom Stewart, and Lawson Humphries, who don't really play key position sorts of roles. Wooden spoon data, you're asking me a question that I will discuss in a little while here, just about the different score. The scores and what I expect. I am expecting the Cats to get a win here, but I will talk about that in a little bit more detail shortly. I do think some of the absentees for Freo here are going to cause them some problems. They do have some players that are coming in that are a little bit under the weather in both Josh Draper and Alex Pearce. Fantastic players, key defensive ones. They're going to be important when it comes to matching up against Shannon Neal and Jeremy Cameron, especially the Jeremy Cameron factor. But there's opportunity there. I think as we start to get close to transitioning over to the actual preview part of it and talking about some of the key matchups and some of the other key facts of the game, if Jeremy Cameron can get off the chain a little bit, we're in a very good position. And whether that's utilizing some weaknesses of Freo or vulnerabilities with some players who are a little bit injured, there's some opportunities there, I think, in the right positions around the ground that can give us a massive advantage. The other thing to note also is that they have a debutant, Murphy Reed, who was picked 17 in the draft this year. So one of their first round picks who will be making his debut. Obviously a huge occasion for anyone who gets to make their debut. I'm looking for him on the list here in terms of where there he is on the half forward flank. Congratulations to the young bloke. Hopefully he has a good game. Hopefully he doesn't enjoy a win in his first match though. Sorry, mate. No offense. As we now move to the preview side of proceedings tonight, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the heat poll things that have been discussed. There's a video that I've got up there about that. That we'll talk a bit more about in some detail here. There's been a little bit of extra clarification on that over the course of the day. The breaks are being extended. They're going to be now from 6 minutes up to 8 minutes. It's not a huge difference, but I think it'll be a handy one as I full screen it again. I think it'll be a handy point of difference for both teams. It is going to be a really hot day, and it's good to see that both teams are going to get the breaks that they need in order to rest up and go again. We don't need any heat stroke. We don't need any problems. And for the crowd as well, maybe just an extended break to get another drink and cool off that little bit more. It's going to be nasty on the day. I don't want to get too carried away. I've obviously already done a video there where I spoke about it in some detail. And as I highlighted in the video, teams like Fremantle, but also West Coast, Brisbane, Gold Coast, they deal with this all the time. And especially in that early part of the season, that March part of the season, when they have some home games, they also get weather like this. So we haven't made a fuss about it to the same degree. So I don't want to get too carried away about the whole thing, but it is certainly a factor. And I'm glad the AFL is doing what they can to support both clubs. Listening to some interviews today, actually, it turns out Geelong had been doing a bit of preparatory work around conditioning themselves for hot weather because, of course, they were going to be going up for Brisbane, so they were doing more sauna stuff. They were working in hotter temperatures or uglier conditions. And yes, your mind goes to that Darwin match. Are you talking about the Gold Coast one, Shadu? Because that was worrisome. But I think on the home deck, I suspect we're not going to have those same sorts of problems. All right, let's get into the key details. Saturday, 1:20, Cardinia Park. Huge crowd expected. Make sure you get your tickets if you haven't already. I've got mine. I'll see you in the what did I say I was going to be in the Brownlow stand. I'm on the top level there, and apparently my phone's just started playing some footy highlights for some reason. I know, having seen the chat, that over the course of the last few Paul James shows, that there's quite a few of you that are also going to the game. So please make sure, especially join the Discord if you haven't already. We've got the links to the Discord in the show notes. Join the Discord. We'll probably put a post out there just to ask who's going, and maybe if there's some opportunities to meet up, we'll look to try and take advantage of those. I will stress, as I've done a couple of times already, I'm coming with my 6-year-old son, who's going to be quite intimidated by the whole occasion. Full house, big crowd. It's not his first game. We went to Geelong and Hawthorn last year. We also went to the prelim final. But it's going to be pretty packed, and it's a bit of father and son time. But I'd love to take the opportunity a couple minutes along the way to say hi to people. So let me know, let us know, the Hoops Crew team know if you're going to be at the ground here in both the chat and then also on the Hoops Crew Discord, where you're going to be, and we can try and maybe organise some sort of a meetup at some point, maybe halftime or something like that, with one of these extended breaks that we're going to have. Big Galoop. You just ask, what is a Discord? If you check it in the show notes, you check. It's basically a forum of sorts, but it's a curated one that we've built for the Hoops Crew community specifically. Lots of different channels where you can talk about, obviously Geelong news, broader AFL news, off-topic conversations, a whole lot of stuff. Also, it's a really handy resource for videos from the Hoops Crew itself. They all pop up there for you to check out. They basically get immediately pinged on the Discord for you to check out there as well. Really great text-based option that can also be used for video and chats as well. And we'll definitely look into ways to utilize that in the future as well. The game will be broadcast on Foxtel and KO. Now, this is obviously a really contentious topic within the AFL community, the supporter bases right now, with the new media rights resulting in Saturday games being exclusively put to air by Foxtel/KO. There's no free-to-air coverage anymore, which, it's frustrated a few people, right? If you're not going to the game, that is your only option to watch the game live. So, I don't know, find a friend who's got a KO account, mooch off them for the day, hang out with your friends, go have a viewing party, whatever it is that you need to do if you don't have the access yourself, because it's going to be a great one to watch, or make sure you're at the game. Past players, there's going to be a tribute to them at 12:45, so make sure you get yourself in early if you can. It'll be great to kind of see some respect being paid to the likes of Hawk and Zach Tui and some of the others who've left the club over the course of the last few years. Lots of really important figures that we want to celebrate who've done incredible things for the Cats. And without having a home game through that final series, I guess we had the prelim, but a Geelong game through the final series. It'll be nice to say well to some of these guys on our home deck. Ben has sleeve watch here for Brad Close, with it obviously being a scorching hot day. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about Brad Close and his 3-year contract that he's signed just recently. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But in the video, if anyone's caught that, he did allude to the fact that he might not go with the sleeves this week because of the extreme weather. I'd expect to see a little bit more of Brad Close's of Brad Close's arms this weekend. He won't be wearing that long sleeve option, I suspect. Another important thing here, it's a milestone for us to celebrate. Of course, we have Bailey Smith coming in playing his first game for the Cats, and that's an awesome milestone. But Chris Scott will be celebrating his 550th game as both a player or coach. It's a huge number to hit. Not many have done it over the course of their playing coaching careers, and it's Sir Bradley Close. Sir Bradley Close, will pay him proper respect. Everyone bow. 550 games as player and coach is an enormous milestone, and we look forward to Scotty coaching for another 2, 3, 4, 500 as well. He's done so many good things for this football club, and I don't think he's going away anytime soon, which is great as well, because I think he's a sensational coach, and I know there's been questions over the years, but he continues to shut those conversations down really, really well. Recent form, we obviously don't have a lot to pull on here. Our opening round game was cancelled due to the cyclone, so our last game that we can talk about for both teams was around September time. Freo didn't have a September. They were off drinking and celebrating and ending the year early. Well, Geelong played all the way out to a prelim final. It was a bit of a heartbreaker for us there in the end. I mentioned that my son came along. He hadn't seen a loss before, so there were some tears. And there was, I've handled it well. Like as Geelong supporters, we've unfortunately seen a bit of prelim final heartbreak over the years, and so as disappointing as it was on the spot, there wasn't really any huge emotion for me. But it started to kind of flood out when I could see my son bawling his eyes out. He's not old enough, but in fact, I don't really like thinking about it. It was pretty awful to see him upset like that, and not much you can do. But hopefully we go all the way this year, and I can put a smile back on that face, and look, the faces obviously of hundreds of thousands of other Cats fans countrywide if they can go the journey. History when it comes to matchups against Freo. It's been a bit of a tricky run for the Cats, especially at home against the Dockers of late. Our most recent match, though, we won by 11 points at round 23 at Optus Stadium. Great, but when it comes to games against Freo at GMHBA, things haven't been going so well. We've lost our last two. And 3 from our last 5, which is not great, but hopefully a good opportunity to kind of, I guess, fix some of those problems this weekend. Ben with the show notes. Ben with the show notes. Another highlight. We're diving into the archives here, but it is one of my favourite moments from Geelong v Fremantle matchups over the years, is when Matthew Scarlett punched Hayden Ballantyne in the head round 1 2012 and copped a 3-week suspension for it. 100% worth it. That little turd probably needed to be hit even harder, the way he plays, the way he chirps, the way he's a smartass. But it was a funny one. Don't know if I loved it at the time. He's going to get weeks, but with all the dust settled and many years for us to kick back and think about it, I only think fondly of Hayden Ballantyne being punched in the head by Matthew Scarlett. Of course, another piece of history, though, is not necessarily a good one. A semi-final. It's one of the few only. How many finals have we had at GMHBA? 1. Unfortunately, that one was against Freo in 2013. It was a semi-final loss down at Cardinia Park. Freo would go on to lose the grand final to Hawthorn that year because, of course, we then had a heartbreaker in the prelim final where the Kennett curse was lifted at last. Bit of a rough final series for us there because I'm pretty confident that if we played Freo in the grand final, we would have won that one, but not to be. Stats that matter. No Geelong player has had more than 23 disposals or kicked more than 2 goals. There's no timeline on this, but Ben's throwing a stat at me that I think is an important one to note. Timeline, expand upon that, Ben, a little bit in the chat. Will you get Barkley? Probably not. I think he kind of sat in his own shit tonight, so he's stinking it up a little bit, and I haven't watched him yet, so we'll get to that after I'm done here. I'm not having him wreck my studio. What's at stake? Ben's kind of highlighted pretty well here. We can't lose 3 on the trot to the Dockers. Oh, there you go. So last time Ben clarifies there. So the last time we played them, no one had more than 23 disposals or kicked 2 goals. And yeah, when I think about that game, it was very much the team effort. Everyone really chipped in. It was a fantastic effort. And it really said to me that we were good to go for finals. And, well, we were. It didn't quite work out, but we really, from that moment on, I felt supremely confident about what we could do. And yeah, while it didn't work out, it was really good to see. Ben's highlighted, we can't be losing 3 straight to Freo at home. We can't lose. We just can't be throwing away games at home. We've got the extra one at GMHBA this year, and we want to cash in on every single possible opportunity that comes our way. So let's hope that we can bank the win this week. For Freo, they've got a tough game to come against the Swans the following week. It's in Perth, which definitely helps. And the Swans, I mean, look, it's hard to get a bit of a read. They battled on against the Hawks, but they did look vulnerable at different stages. They've also got a matchup against the Lions this week. So if the Swans go 0-2, there might be a bit of venom going into a round 2 match with the Dockers. Geez, opening round messes things up. Let's do away with it, please. Some game breakers. Ben asked me to choose some game breakers for tonight, and I do have one from each team. For me, for the Cats, it's Max Holmes. Now, of course, that feels like a very easy answer to go with, right? He's the reigning Cargi winner, and he's done some incredible things. If you checked out my video where I was reacting to the top 25 players in the competition as per the AFL.com.au team, you'll notice that they had Max Holmes 25th, which I thought was awesome. I wasn't expecting it. And I wonder if maybe he still has a little bit of time to go. Anyway, I'm not going to spoil all my thoughts there. Please go check out that video. See how the AFL team ranked the players. Catch my reaction for it. It's live on the YouTube channel now. It's about a 20-minute long video. But Max Holmes, I think speed in this particular matchup is going to be really, really important. Sarong is an accumulator. Brayshaw is an accumulator. They're also missing some speed on their end. We spoke about Shea Bolton. We spoke about Michael Walters. They're missing some of their... I mean, they've still got a certain ex-cat in Jordan Clark. But, yeah, I think in that particular matchup, I think Max Holmes' speed is going to be really vital in terms of breaking open the middle there. We've got some, obviously, good grunt midfielders, but his speed will be really vital. For Freo, though, and this goes back to my comments before about Sam de Koning and Reece Stanley and everything that's going there, I think the most important player on the field for Freo in this particular matchup is Luke Jackson, playing as that key forward, ruckman role. I have no doubt that he is going to be a really dangerous prospect for us over the course of the day. And I'm really hoping that Sam de Koning is ready and willing to go with him wherever he goes. If he goes to the key forward role, that maybe Sam goes with him and Mark Blitzarves goes into the ruck at that particular point. When he's in the ruck, I think basically those two should just match up on each other all day, regardless of where they play. And I think that maybe mitigates some risk, but curbing his influence as the ruckman, I think, is going to be the most important thing for us. And this might be a similar conversation that we have all year. I think ruckman, the opposition ruckman is always going to be a point of concern for us, while we haven't really worked out our own rucking situation yet. Though I'll try to make sure I'm not focusing on ruckman every single week. I say that, and my final point here, the keys to victory. Similar to that game from round 2023, I'm expecting a very balanced, even output from all of our players here. So I think the main thing is down to how we shut down some of Freo's key players. I just mentioned Luke Jackson and what we can do in that respect. I think if we shut him down, we go a long way towards winning the match. While when it comes to other key players for them, Sarong and Brayshaw, I would love to see your Mark O'Connors or your O'Sheen Mullins, one of them go to one of those two boys and just shut them down for the day. It doesn't mean they can't accumulate the ball. I mean, we've seen, I hate to keep referencing because he's a bit overrated, but Nick Dacos obviously can still accumulate the ball en masse when he's getting tagged, as we saw going on last weekend before he got injured or got a mild cramp and everyone dropped their tools and decided to quit for the day. But the quality of those disposals dropped off significantly. And I'm not expecting Sarong or Brayshaw to be just wiped out of the game if one of those boys goes and plays on him. But their ability to hit targets, the fact that it's probably going to be more of a handball game from them, I think really, really lends itself to a victory. So I'm hopeful that whether it's Mullen, O'Connor, that one of those two, or maybe even both, kind of plays off those two players at various different points, maybe even the majority of the game. And that will give us a huge head start on the win. Ben, I don't think Barkley liked the idea that I wasn't going to bring him on the show tonight. He's making a bit of fuss outside. So to go back to the question before about who do I think is going to win, and I'm looking for the comments so that I can pin it. Can't find it at the moment. Seems to have disappeared on me. But who do I think is going to win? Cats by 15 points. I don't think it's going to be, there we go, wooden spoon data. Cats by 15 points for me. I don't think it's going to be any sort of comprehensive win. Freo can play a really defensive, low-scoring game when they need to, and they might, have to utilize that a little bit to snuff out some of our greatest assets. I think we'll still get the chocolates. I think we'll be able to do enough to mitigate their midfield influence. They're depleted in terms of their small forward stocks. When we bring the ball down from the key forward contests, we should have a bit of an advantage there with your Tom Stewarts, your Zach Guthries, etc. Lawson Humphreys, of course, as well, to then whisk the ball back out of there without that extreme speed chasing us down. So I think there's an advantage there for us, and I think we'll get the win. The other prediction, I've already touched on this a little bit, no sleeves for Brad Close. The heat will be too much, and he will go without the sleeves, but he has already alluded to that himself. All right, we're about to jump into a player spotlight here, but before we do so, we need to take a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for all you do in supporting the Hoops Crew and what we get up to. Some little comments that have come in along the way. Ben, I'm pinning this so you're aware of it. Apparently, the Discord link is invalid or has expired. If you're able to take a look into that one, maybe even just share it in the comments, that would be fantastic, just so we can let more people in. We're not a closed garden, but we don't want bots and those sort of things coming in. We had a whole bunch when Ben had posted the link on Discord at one point. On Twitter at one point, we had a whole bunch of bots pile in, and we've kind of snuffed that out. So we're trying to make sure it's available in the show notes and all of those sort of things. Ben, if you're able to maybe generate a link for us and pop it into the chat, that would be really helpful for the likes of Roslyn. And there were some others that were asking about Discord earlier. Big galoot. Beyond that, I am seeing Shadoo's comment about Barkley saying, let me in. Not if you're going to drag your shit-covered ass across my floor here. Or me. Jared with some comments here around the game breaker, Dangerfield being the game breaker, 3 or more goals and 12 score involvements and 25 disposals when he goes into the middle. I mean, if we get that type of danger game, that's going to be huge. I'm really interested now that we're into the real deal. We saw a taste of it during the preseason matches, but I'm really interested to see how we approach Paddy Dangerfield and his listing as a forward at the moment. People have made these comparisons. These comparisons to Lee Matthews and Gary Ablett Sr. I don't think we're going to expect that sort of football from him. But if he can kick 2 goals a game, I'm going to be really happy with that over the course of the year. And it probably looks after his hamstring a little bit. Aviation agrees with Jared. Freo have a huge full forward line, hence the matchup. Keep in mind that the team sheet is literally just a list of players. Like, we're not going to have Shannon. For example, if you look at our forward line, you're not going to have Jeremy Cameron, Shannon Neal, and Paddy Dangerfield all playing off the full forward line. One of those two is going to play. One of those 2 key forwards is going to play at centre half forward. One of Stengel, Miers. I can't remember who the other one was that was listed on the half forward flank. Maybe it was Brad Close. Hang on, let me check it. Yeah, Close, Miers, Stengel. One of those 3 is going to be coming back to the forward pocket as well. So don't stress too much about that. Same sort of idea for Freo, where that's a crazy tall forward line. But I actually don't think it will be, though. Like, I don't think we'll see those 3 in the forward line together all that often, unless Luke Jackson is floated in as a ruckman. But yeah, I guess the teams are independently posting these online. They don't know how the other opposition's going to list it, and it really doesn't matter. It's just a list of players these days. All right, let us get into the player spotlight for this episode, where we're going to talk a little bit about our mate Gryan Miers. If you haven't already checked out the interview with Gryan Miers, it's a couple of years old now, but he had some wonderful things to say when he came on Behind the Play with me a couple of years ago now. Please go check out that episode. It's one of my favorite pieces of content that I've done for the Hoops crew, because he was so gracious with his time. He gave so much. He was super generous, and he was great fun. And of course, as a bloke, got a lot of love for him too. I've spoken a little bit about my story where I brought my son to, Geelong and Essendon. It was the country round game. Tom Hawkins had given him a ball after the game. He was beyond delighted. It was his first match of footy that he'd gone to see. Some kid, I had Noah sitting up on my shoulders. Hawk passed the ball to him. Some kid snatched it out of his hand and took off. Fortunately, it was only a few weeks, maybe a month or so prior, that I'd had Gryan on the show. And I just reached out to Gryan asking if there's anything he could do to potentially help out. And he got one of the balls after the Adelaide win the following week. Got Hawk to sign it. I said, you might want to pop your signature on it as well, because I suspect for doing this, you're quickly going to become Noah's favourite player. He did that. And Noah is, in fact, just number one fan of Gryan Miers. So, thank you, Gryan. You're an absolute legend. But let's talk about your football here. He was picked 57 in the 2017 AFL draft and got lots of exposure to the club really early. He's been a pretty prominent feature from a pretty early stage. He's racked up 131 games at this point. A lot of what caught clubs' attention was a very steel side bottom style performance in the TAC Cup Grand Final, where he kicked 7 goals. That usually guarantees an effort like that. Usually guarantees that you're going to get picked in the draft, and it did for him. Got him a pick. Got him selection at the Cats. He's of course now gone on to become a premiership player. He debuted in round 1, 2019 against the Pies. He was a Rising Star nominee in round 8 of that same year, and in 2019 finished with played 25 games and scored 28 goals. He kicked 1 goal in the losing 2020 Grand Final to Richmond. Was a bit of a whipping boy for some throughout 2021 when goals dried up due to a bit of a change in role. And I think it took a little while for him to work out exactly how he was going to play that link-up role that him and Brad Close play so incredibly well now. But people quickly jumped onto him, and he's got this unique kicking style, which then means that He's a bit of a lightning rod for attention, both good and bad, and people piled on him for a while. And I thought it was a bit shit. And if you're questioning whether I'm making that up now in retrospect, please go check out all the content where I said otherwise. We love Gryan. We've always loved Gryan. And he really came into his own, though. He missed the first 3 weeks of 2022, but then went on to become a premiership player, a huge, huge part of that team. He is the current holder of the goal assist record with 41 of them in the 2023 home and away season. And Jared Waitley, as a few people, aviation specifically, have highlighted. Did someone say Messi? Jared Waitley compared him to Lionel Messi. Did he? Anyway, we've seen some of that magic from him in that prelim final. The way he squared that ball up to Ollie Henry in the goal square last year during the prelim final was very Messi-esque, I might say. He's doing some extraordinary things, and we love Gryan. He's played 131 games now, 15 of which are finals, and has kicked 100 goals. So I think the big thing that I want to see from Gryan this year, if we're talking about, I guess, his growth as a player, I'd love to make sure that we're seeing maybe on average a 1.2 to 1.5 goals a game sort of average from him. It's been a bit of a balancing act for him in the last few years. Obviously, 2023, he was in contention for All-Australian that year, didn't make it. And I think the thing that and not that we're doing this for All-Australian jackets, but I think the thing that cost him in the end was that he wasn't hitting the scoreboard as much himself. Despite the fact that he set a record there, I think he can strike a bit of a balance where if he shaves 10 goal assists off, but then adds 15 to 20 goals per year, I think that's a really great balancing act. And he was you could see him working on that last year. Now he's accumulating the ball a lot more. That preseason match, we saw him get 30 disposals, and I think he took about 9 marks as well. That link-up role is working for him. And whether he is scoring goals himself or whether he is providing those assists, I'm just keen to see more of what he does. He's absolutely extraordinary, horrifically underrated, I think, by a lot of people in the competition, and is a vital cog in the Geelong machine. And as I mentioned before, we kind of wrap up this Gryan Miers focus, there is a link to the Behind the Play episode in the show notes. So if you want to check out that episode, it's about an hour long, but it was a great conversation. Please check that one out. We love Gryan. He was, like I said, he was so good with his time, and I hope that one day we can have him on the show once again. We are now at the point of the show that I enjoy the most. It's Q&A time. Now, while we do that, I will be keeping a bit of an eye on the scores. We'll provide a bit of a score check update on Richmond and Carlton. And jeez, I expected that maybe Carlton would have, taken a bit of offense to the Richmond comeback of the second quarter. But as it turns out, Richmond have closed the gap even further. This is kind of disgusting by Carlton at the moment. They're leading, but it is much closer than it should be. 6-1-37 to Richmond, 7-8-50 to the Blues, with some key scorers at this point being Toby Nankervis, who's kicked 2, as a ruckman, I might add, for Richmond. Singles apiece to Zach Williams, Sam Walsh, Jack Ross, Tom Lynch. Number 1 draft pick Sam Layla has kicked his first goal. Brody Kemp, Frank the Tank. We love him. We'll talk about him in the Q&A a little bit here. Francis Evans, who's kicked his first. It was a good off-the-ground goal early on. Lockie Cowan, Matt Cottrell, Seth Campbell, and Blake Acres, who've all kicked a goal each. And then in the disposal count, Tim Taranto leads the way with 18. Paddy Cripps, Adam Chera, Sam Walsh, all closely following him. But those scores, as Carlton maybe, takes issue with my feedback there, they've gone and put a goal on the scoreboard themselves just now. All right. Q&A. We've got a few topics we're going to discuss here. I've got a few points that we're going to kind of talk through, and I'd love to see your comments here in the chat, and I'll certainly look to embed them wherever we can. But we spoke about Brad Close before. He's signed on for 3 years. That gets him through to the end of 2028. It's going to because that's on top of his already 2025 contract. That's awesome. As we kind of said when it comes to Gryan, Brad Close is such an important cog in that link up from the back line to midfield to into the forward line, and to have him for another 3 performing that same role, getting a few bags of goals himself along the way. I think that's awesome. Very much looking forward to what he can offer. Reports are that Shannon Neal is pretty close to signing a 3-year extension as well. And there's also been some talk about Toby Conway with 2 years, which is great to see. We've got a long list of players, and I'm going to see if I can find the comment here in the Discord, and I might try and pin it to the screen. Jake from the Chaps put a long list of players earlier. I'm going to see if I can find it. It might take me a moment to find it, but there it is. Let me share my screen with everyone. We'll stop sharing that. I'll present this. Share screen. Window. General footy. Boom. Let's talk a little bit about... Oh, I hate how StreamYard does that. Here's our list of players here that are out of contract at the moment. Brad Close, obviously, we can strike his name off the list. Cam Guthrie, George Stevens, Jed Buse, Mark Blitzars, Mitch Duncan, Mitch Edwards, Mitch Nevitt, Ocean Mullen, Ollie Henry, Ollie Wiltshire, Ollie Dempsey. Good work, Jake. Reece Stanley, Sam DeConing, Shannon Neal, Shawnee Manor, Ted Closey, Toby Conway, Atkins. There's quite a few players. And again, for anyone unsure of the Discord, here it is here. Actually, let me project the link on screen right now. I think I can make this work. There is the link. I will drop it in the comments right now so that you can also join the Discord. Hopefully that one works for everyone. Yes, Amy actually comments that she's heard about Ollie Henry with 2 as well. I did hear his name come up as well for a potential 2-year extension. I think is pretty imminent from some of the reporting that I saw earlier on. There's the link for the Discord if anyone wants to join it. Having the app, as you can see from my screen projected version, certainly makes it a bit easier, but you can access it via browsers. And as I mentioned before, you can see that there's links to any YouTube content from the Geelong site. We've got a bot here that automatically posts those sorts of things, as well as content from us. There's the reaction video from the AFL top 25 players of 2025 and more. So consider checking out the Discord. Lots of opportunities. You can see all the channels down the side there for people to kind of chat about their favorite hoops topics or broader football topics. We'd love to see you there. All right, enough of that. Let's get back to... Actually, sorry, I'll keep that up for a little bit longer. Let's get back to the agenda here, where we'll next talk about Link McCarthy, a former Cat who's unfortunately done his ACL off the back of doing it again last year. It was bad enough that a guy that we love and has, since going to Brisbane until last year, had a really awesome run with injury since joining the club. And whilst we would have loved to have held on to Link, it made sense for him to depart when he did. The Lions took a chance on him, and it was really working out. And he was an awesome contributor. He's now gone and done his ACL twice in as many years, which is really, really unfortunate. We send all, I think all Geelong supporters, and certainly I'm going to speak for as many as I possibly can, all send our best to Link McCarthy. You hate ACLs affecting anyone, let alone anyone who's got a little bit of a tie to our beloved Geelong Football Club. Some coach sledging went on over the course of the week between Fly and Adam Kingsley during that game. And look, I'm going to maybe show my hand a little bit for Nuff of the Week at the moment. There's always a possibility, I suppose, that someone else pops up over the course of this weekend and steals the limelight. But I'm not overly happy with the way the AFL has chosen to handle this. After all the fuss they made about Ken Hinkley last year and slapped a $20,000 fine on him, to then basically just let both blokes off the hook this week is kind of frustrating to me, actually. I really don't love the way they've approached this. I'll rant and rave a little bit more about it if it ends up being my Nuff of the Week topic. But, I think it's pretty poor form from Fly in the first place. Adam Kingsley, I think at that point, had every right to defend his players. So I could kind of understand if Adam Kingsley got off the hook. But beyond that, though, Fly should have copped a fine, at least equal to the Ken Hinkley one, I think. Our next topic here, or kind of next two topics, relate to players who are dealing with a little bit at the moment. Carlton's Elijah Hollins has taken some personal leave. There's been lots of reporting and scuttlebutt about why that is. I think we all know why that is, because his issues were somewhat documented when he first came across from Gold Coast to Carlton, I believe. And if they weren't, I won't be talking about him because I did at the time have sources that were able to confirm why he was having the problems he had. most people have kind of cottoned on to what it is this time around, if not before. And I wish him nothing but the best in terms of getting the support he needs to be in a better place. Jamarra Ugle-Hagan has been absent from training all week, which is not ideal considering all the buzz about him and all the conversations. And we saw Bont on AFL 360 this week. We've heard coaches talking about, we hear about riffs with him and Rory Lobb, and Rory Lobb came out and spoke about it. And then he doesn't rock up for training. Not a great look, mate. Hopefully he can sort himself out and get some good football under his belt. I will note, and this is assuming that everything comes together for him. I put together a video a few months ago about Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, the cat. And it was very much speculatory. I didn't have anything to go on whatsoever because there was absolutely nothing going on. I think right now there still kind of is nothing to go on. But I was listening to Triple M's Sunday Rub on the weekend, where Jay Clark, the new chief of football at the Herald Sun, and someone I think everyone's going to like much more than Mark Robinson, just happened to drop in conversation about Jamarra that Sydney, followed by Geelong, in his eyes, were the front runners for Jamarra. It's kind of exciting if he can get himself right. And I'm forgetting his football. If he's able to get himself right with everything else that's going on and the battles that he's fighting at the moment, that's the priority. But then if he does depart the Dogs, the fact that we are there or thereabouts, really exciting prospect. I think the Swans would and should be. Damn it, Mozzie. Number one for the night. If he can get himself sorted, and then the Swans would be the front runners because I think they are desperately in need of key forward talent. And I think maybe to get out of the Melbourne bubble would also be a good thing for him. But also going to Geelong gets you out of the Melbourne bubble as well. And he's from he's a western suburbs, so kind of outer west, country west. I think I'm trying to remember exactly where he's from, but he was kind of in our zone. It was just that he's tied up with the Dogs. So he's from Warren. Thank you. The Tigers have got it within 2 goals, 7-2-44 to Carlton 8-8-56. If Carlton blows this, oh my God, the walls will be torn down on the joint. And a young, plucky Richmond team, right now they've got a sniff. No doubt about it, they've got a sniff. In the coaching ranks, Brad Scott and Ross Lyon have both extended to 2027. I think, I guess, especially for Essendon, I think a really good thing. The thing that Essendon needs to do is put out a message of stability right now. And I think keeping someone like Brad Scott in there, who's got a great record of taking teams to at least deep into the finals, even though he hasn't taken them to a grand final yet, I think is a really good thing. I think he's a really talented coach. And I think with a bit more time, he'll continue to develop that list the way he wants it. And then they'll be a serious competitor pretty soon. I just don't think this year. Ross Lyon, on the other hand, he arrived at an awkward time where there was some messaging coming out from Saints leadership where, our list has hit this, and this, and they were really pumping it up. And Ross arrived and he looked at the list and he goes, no, we need to kind of rip this up and rebuild. So they're kind of in this spot where they are still building up a list. And that means that losses come with that. How long they can tolerate it for, I think, is the big question. And I think 2027 for the end of his contract makes a lot of sense in that regard. By the time you get to 2027, if you're a St Kilda fan, if you're a St Kilda executive, if you're someone in some form of leadership or representation of the Saints, you would expect it in 2027 with the talent that you've already brought in the last couple of years, let alone the fact that you've already got your Max Kings and those sorts of blokes there too, and a couple more years to draft some guns. You'd expect them to be playing finals by that point, I would say. And if they're not, Ross the boss is gone. The illicit drugs policy has been up for conversation this week. I think and if people haven't seen it, there is a brilliant clip. I'm going to see if I can pull it out of thin air here. There was a clip by Nathan Buckley, of Nathan Buckley speaking about the drugs policy on SEN. Nathan Buckley. And I'm hoping I can find it. Here it is. We are going to sit and we're going to watch this because this was a really I think it was such a well-spoken piece by Nathan Buckley, and I know some love him, some hate him, but he is a very, very smart individual, and the way he spoke about the illicit drugs policy here, considering that this was off the back of Elijah Hollands and speculation about other players, I think it was brilliant. So I'm going to get the screen share going here. I'm going to blow this up to full screen. Give me 1 second to make it all work. Because I think this is a really important conversation in the footy realm. We'll share that screen. Hopefully everything is working. I'm going to pop off to the side here and mute myself for a moment. Please, everyone, if you've not listened to this, take it all on board because I think it was absolutely exceptional. I'll see you in about 3 or 4 minutes.
You have been eager to talk about the illicit drugs policy, and it's right in the news again now, and the friction between the Players Association and the league as the league drives for a different model. But what's principally on your mind in this debate?
This has annoyed me as a leader in the locker room. This has annoyed me as an assistant coach. It has annoyed me as a early days in senior coaching, and increasingly the disconnect between the AFL and the football clubs, their football clubs, on how to support their players. The AFL don't support the individuals within the clubs. The managers are there to support them in some shape or form, but when they walk into the four walls, their teammates, the leaders, the leadership within that, their assistant coaches, the football program, they are the people who can support players better than anyone else. Now, some clubs do it better than others at different times, but the 18 clubs that are there, they care fundamentally for the human that they're asking to go out and perform every other weekend. To take that away, to take this illicit drugs policy and this idea that there's information that the league have, they quarantine it, and the players are aware of it as well, and they quarantine it from the environments that are there to protect and support these individuals, which creates an absolute disconnect. And I think the AFL have created a rod for their own back. I think the program enables illicit drug use rather than dealing with it. And I think that's largely around a marketing ploy about not wanting to be seen as, I think there's a welfare element, absolutely, but the clubs are the best place to provide the welfare. If I'm a parent with a 17 or an 18-year-old that's going into an AFL environment, I'd rather that the question being asked of my kid going into an AFL environment is that you either take illicit drugs or you're a professional footballer. You cannot be both. But the AFL system enables both. And I think that's wrong. I think if you make a poor decision, well, then you should be penalised for it. If you make a second poor decision, well, then you should be penalised a little bit greater. And then over time, you'll work out pretty quickly what's acceptable in the environment and what's not. But the AFL have taken that out of the club's hands, and it has created what I think is an enabling of poor decisions for professionals. Now, they're young men. Yes, they're defining themselves. Yes, they're developing. But they also are professional players being paid a lot of money to do what they do. And there's a responsibility and accountability that comes with that. And there is, and when you come to these situations, accountability is the thing that's being removed. Responsibility is the thing that's being removed, and it's wrong.
I think that will tap into largely the public view towards it, and the league wants to move to a more punitive measure, and the players are resisting that absolutely. So somewhere in there is a compromise that won't be as definitive as you've just been.
But what you're saying, it's a compromise. A compromise of what? What is best for the individual is whether they like it or not. That should be the uncompromising nature of whatever program is put into place. We mollycoddle too much. We enable too much. It should be really cut and dried. If you love your footy, if you love getting this amount of money that's coming your way, there's a sacrifice that needs to be made. You can't do what your mates in financial planning or in stockbroking or whatever. You can't do that.
Yep.
This is the minimum standard that we're asking of you.
So yeah, that was Bucks speaking about the illicit drugs policy and how it isn't being implemented. And I was so struck when I heard that. I just thought the way he spoke about it was absolutely bang on. And I just hope that that message gets heard by the people that need to hear it. Both I am seeing Shadu's point there about, I would not say someone needs to sacrifice their mental health. No, there's a balancing act there for sure. And I don't, look, when you're going on a good 3-4 minute diatribe, there's things you're probably not going to word 100% perfectly. And I would say, you're not sacrificing your mental health, but I also would say that people are, in a lot of cases, whether they realize it or not, sacrificing their mental health in the moments where they choose to partake in different substances. It's just how how we get to that point that can kind of vary a little bit, in my opinion. But I do understand what you're talking about. All right, some other topics to discuss here relate to the 150th anniversary test match that's going to be occurring at the MCG in mid-March. That is going to create a little bit of conjecture, I suppose. It's going to clash with the AFL season, most likely. And considering that we are seeing a bit of a scenario play out right now between the South Australian Cricket Association and the AFL over Adelaide Oval, I can see this continuing to be a bit of an issue over the course of the next little while. I'm really interested to see how this situation with South Australia kind of wraps up. I suspect that the South Australian Cricket Association will get what they want, but it's a very, very hard one to get right here. I don't know how they're going to do it. Logistically, it is going to be really challenging, but we'll see how it all plays out. I don't know. I don't really have any answers for that one right now. Also, FYI, Richmond is now within 1 goal of the Tigers. This is unreal what's playing out at the moment. Once you are done watching this show tonight, please flick over to the football because the Tigers this could be, I know it's early, and I know there's a bit of hyperbole probably linked to this, but this could be one of the stories of the year for the team that is absolutely considered to be the worst team in the comp right now. Packed full of kids that are inexperienced, to come out and potentially beat one of the flag fancies would be massive. And sucked in Carlton supporters, even if you win from this point, you've shown that maybe you're not what we all thought you were. Anyway, we've got lots of friends on the Carlton side of the fence from Blue Abroad and Pommy and Oz, so we send them nothing but our best. But it's an interesting one. West Coast is offering a 2 to 5 year contract to Harley Reid. Of course, he's still contracted to the end of next year. Of course, the Geelong name gets associated with it. Of course, people are making lots of jokes at the expense of Geelong and other players coming to the club this week. I think the AFL memes page on Facebook has been doing a pretty awesome job, I must admit, really leaning into the theatre of the whole audit thing. I was planning on talking about the audit early in the show. That one got away from me, but we'll talk about that one a little bit more through this Q&A section. In fact, we may as well lean into it right now. All the talk around the audit thing is bullshit. Let's get that out of the way at the moment. Straight away. Caroline Wilson probably knew that Port Adelaide and several other clubs were also being audited, because an audit, as I explained in the video, and it is in the show notes, please go check out that video where I really expand on the whole thing in more detail. Audits are a normal thing that occur in many organizations and not just about financial processes. So Caroline Wilson, who the night that the report came out, I kind of half defended. Caroline Wilson can get fucked. We're back to, dropping bombs. I haven't seen Bussy in the chat tonight, but cover your children's ears, Bussy. It's another media person who's getting ripped on from me, because she would have known, because it came out the very next day that Port was one of those other clubs, and there'll be many other clubs in the same boat. just see, Caroline Wilson said Port had already been cleared. I think if you're a high-profile media person, sorry, I'll pin that comment from Amy. If you're a high-profile media person who's reporting on stuff like this, to outline those details would have minimized, not completely eradicated, because there's people with an axe to grind. There's absolutely people out to get Geelong in terms of media, like in terms of fans. They're sick of us. There's people with an axe to grind that are looking for an opportunity to get a win, and this gave them one. And because the reporting on it was so poor, it meant that it looked like it was all Geelong, and it wasn't. And it looked like it gave weight to the Chris Scott and Morris Finance, the Joel Selwood thing from years ago that is or isn't real. There's a whole... she said it the next night. Too late, I guess, Caroline Wilson. The damage is already done. Brian Cook was not happy with her. Can you elaborate on that? I haven't heard anything about Brian Cook in relation to this whole thing. I guess like he would have been working intimately with Geelong on a lot of this sort of stuff. And I'm glad that him, being a representative of Carlton these days, I'm glad that he was kind of speaking out for his old club. I think that's really important. Scores are level at 3/4 time. Yes. There's an upset brewing, and I'm not going to race to wrap this show up early, but geez, I can't wait until we're done and I can watch it. It's not like the producers wouldn't have approved it before it went to air. Look, I think there's ways they could have and should have done this a lot better, that Caroline could have and should have reported initially in the first place, because she was to use the name of their show, the agenda setters. She set an agenda with that, and she provided only half the information, which caused a lot of problems and continues to create a lot of jokes and a lot of stupidity and a lot of fuss and probably a lot of questions for Geelong representatives when they do media spots that are based on faulty information. Clarifying it 24 hours later is important whenever you can, but the damage is already done, and you had the info to be able to do it right in the first place. Yank, who I don't know if I've actually seen you pop up in a Paul James show so far. So welcome, mate. And I'm looking forward to potentially chatting through post-game live over the course of this weekend. And I believe you're still planning on making your way to Australia later this year. Looking forward to potentially even getting to meet you in person. That would be awesome when the time comes. I'm just glad that footy has some semblance of a salary cap. I spent over half a century as a huge fan of the MLB, and the lack of salary cap has destroyed the game. Agreed. She also said she was not suggesting the old regime did anything wrong. There's a lot of people from the old regime still there. So again, Caroline Wilson has not done the best of jobs, and she's trying to walk a few things back, and she's done herself a cropper. But I didn't actually realize that she'd walked it back. So I might go and listen to that at some point. That'll be a really fascinating little extract. If someone happens to have a link to something maybe got broken out on social media, please drop it in the chat. I'd love to check it out. Maybe we can even watch it together on the show if we can get that before the show wraps up. Harley Reid, let's bring him on board. We'll see. He was a Geelong supporter, so that gives us something to work with. Christian Petrarca wants Collingwood because he's a Collingwood supporter growing up. Let's see what happens. The Geelong membership tally currently sits at 65,000 now. Speaking to Hock on Behind the Play a couple of years ago, he spoke about how this year they really wanted to hit 100,000 to celebrate the 100 years, I should say, not the 100,000 years, the 100 years that Ford has been the major sponsor of the Cats. This is like the longest that any club has ever been, like that any club in the world has had a sponsor for this sort of duration. The achievement that they've had, like the partnership they've had with Ford for all these years, is extraordinary. It's been so good for the Cats, and they wanted to hit the milestone this year. Now, 35,000 members between now and then is a lot. So I'll be really interested to see if they can pull it off. My gut says no, but who can rule them out these days? Everything the Cats leadership touches turns to gold these days. So we'll see how it goes. Some other key, I guess, important details for the footy this week is that we've got a VFL practice match that's scheduled 10 a.m. Saturday at Deakin. So if you want to pop over and check that one out before the big game at GMHBA, that's where you can see the VFL players duke it out. And presumably some of our AFL listed players who are not getting a game that weekend will also be there too. We spoke about Frank the Tank making his debut for Carlton. That is happening as we speak. And just to clarify where he's at, He still has the 1 goal from 4 disposals up to this point, but it's great to see him getting a game. Obviously, former Cat, off to the Power, made his way to the Blues. We've seen a few Cats go to Carlton over the course of the last few years. Not all of them have worked out, but hopefully in the case of Francis Evans, that something really works for him here. There's been some talk, and I'm not sure, and Ben, if you are in the chat, I would love for you to clarify where you've potentially seen this information, suggesting that Tom de Koning has rejected one of these massive offers from St Kilda that they've put forward. I know Carlton is offering about a bit over $1 million a year on average to him, or the St Kilda one over 7 years is, obscene. It's basically like the Finn Callaghan offer, 17 million over about 7 years or something like that. Crazy money hat deals here. Ben suggesting that he's rejected that deal. I haven't heard of anything like that. My understanding is he's basically just sitting and holding ground for the time being. But of course, that is going to be a really interesting one as well. Shadu has just mentioned here in the chat about membership options. They need to examine the membership packages. The Cats have a lot of fans around the country and interstate. Membership options are so poor. Can you expand on that? Obviously, being a Victorian, I don't have necessarily that perspective, but I'd really like to know what their interstate member options are and what makes them so poor. Is it that it's kind of lacking in merch? Is it lacking in game options? Is it just a very limited number of options in the first place? Yeah, I have actually heard that Sydney do an amazing job with their membership packages. So I think they need to take a bit of a look at what's going on elsewhere and see if they can emulate that. But I actually don't know what we're doing for our in-state members. So please, Shadu, I'd love to hear more. Expand on that one if you're able to. We'll take a few minutes here to field any questions that people have got. I've got one other segment that focuses more on my love of video games that we're going to wrap things up with before we get into our outros and finish the show from there. But before we get to that, any questions that people have, please fire away in the comments section. Would love to discuss those with you, whether it's stuff around the game this weekend, whether it's broader conversational topics around footy. Shadu, I'm hoping that you're able to provide some feedback on those membership packages for interstate members. Would love to discuss that one a little bit further. And also, if someone has the link of Caroline Wilson speaking about Geelong on the following night of the Agenda Setters, that would be really good as well. Is there anything else that people want to say? Oh, so hang on. International membership is awesome. Not expecting a bunch of swag, but having the Watch AFL app is a huge bonus. That's cool. Veronica Logan saying sticker and cheap keyring is all they give you in membership package, which is very poor. I might see if I can have a bit of a look. Geelong membership. Membership packages. Geelong, one in the hoops. Where do you watch interstate? Let's screen share this. Share screen. Membership packages. Share. Come back. Boom. We've got, so I've filtered it here. We've got games type. Interstate is specifically what I've gone for here. So we've got our Digital Plus membership for $350 a year. Catch all, so that's basically just a KO subscription, a discounted KO subscription, but a KO subscription nonetheless, and a $20 Cats. I have been noticing for all membership things, just this $20 voucher. Why can't we at least go back to the old scarf or a hat thing? That gives me the shits. So this is the one that I just saw referenced in the chat there. And sorry, I have to click back and forth a little bit now to be able to see these things. The $160 a year option. So what do you get there? Reserve seat ticket to attend one Geelong Cats game outside of Victoria in 2025. One. But I guess for a few, you might only go to that state once in some of these cases. Priority access to buy a ticket in weeks 1 to 3 of the 2025 finals, which would be the same for any Victorian member as well. Priority 2 access to buy a 2025 grand final ticket and a $20 Cats shop voucher plus free shipping on our extensive member-exclusive range. Yeah, it's kind of shit, right? The digital support from home package, can't get to the vouchers, so $20, it's just a $20 voucher plus free shipping, member perks from the Cats and our partners, and latest Cats news updates to your inbox. Yeah, okay, sure. Nothing overly special there. And then, sorry, that's the AFL W1. Oh, for their interstate one? Is that the Interstate AFLW. Or maybe they're just pinning that to everything. There's obviously our tally at the bottom there, 65,631 members so far. Hopefully that continues to build. All right, let's check the comments because I've been off screen for a little while. Probably because people like me fill in the survey saying, no scarf, give me voucher. Oh, Jackie, what are you doing? At least let us choose. Question. Come the end of the season, Danger plays 60-40 forward mid-roll. What would you consider this experiment to be a success? I think, and I mentioned obviously similar sort of figure when I was talking about Gryan before. I think Danger, really, I'd want to see him kicking a goal and a half a game. If he kicks a goal and a half a game, he'll spend some time in the midfield. If we're talking 15 to 20 disposals a game for Danger and a goal and a half a game, I think that's fantastic output. And I'd honestly expect, I think that's as a minimum when it comes to the goal output. I think Danger is probably more than capable of kicking more than that per game, especially he'll get certain games where the matchup is just too good for him. The Tigers are in front. Oh my God, are they? This is 5 points. And Sammy Laylor's kicked another goal. This is crazy good. We hate Richmond. Let's just make sure we're really, really clear about this. We hate Richmond. What they did to us in 2020, some of their supporters over the course of that period, it was bullshit the way they behaved. And we're really annoyed about 2020, even though now it's got a star next to it. Didn't really happen. But geez, I want to see him win right now. This is such a massive story brewing right now. But yeah, goal and a half and 15 to 20 disposals a game for Danger would be, I think, a really good thing this year. Yank talks about the voucher not being bad, but if people forget to use it, you did 1 year, you contribute an extra $20 to the club. As it expires, you can get the scarf or cap with the voucher. Are both of those things $20 or less? I don't know. Love sledging the Tigers, but I don't really mind seeing Carlton stubbing their toe here. Yeah, there's pros and cons. I mean, there's pros and cons to this thing. We have to indulge the Tigers supporters to watch the Blues stuff this one up. I can deal. The Carlton page is going to be worthy of some popcorn, mate. I am going straight to Blue Abroad, and I'm not going to comment. We're better than that. Don't be those sort of supporters, people that heckle and be smartasses in the chat. But geez, I'm going to sit with popcorn and watch. And Jackie talked about feral family that are Tiger supporters. All right. If there's any other questions, please fire them my way. Otherwise, we're going to go to the little segment that I'm creating for the first time tonight. As many of you are aware, I love me a video game. And what I'm going to try and do with every Thursday night is spotlight one. It might be something big, something small. You might not be into video games either, and I totally understand if that's you as well. But maybe I'll be able to put you onto some. This one is a game that is on the way. It's not out yet. It's maybe not even going to come out this year. We'll see how it all shapes up. It's called Threads of Time. And if you are an old school gamer and you were maybe around for the Super Nintendo, the 90s, the golden era of video games in the 90s, and I will not have anyone say otherwise, the best time for video games was the 90s. My age is showing yes, but I've been there, I've done that, and I've played ever since. I get games sent to my inbox on the daily. The blessings of being a media person in that space. I've played so much. The 90s were the best. This game, Threads of Fate, is doing something that I absolutely adore. So I'm going to bring up a trailer here, and I hope that everything is going to work and play nicely for me. There it is. I'm going to full screen this bad boy, and everyone can still hear me right now. I'm going to get my lower thirds out of the way, and I'm going to introduce everyone to Threads of Time. I'll shut up.
Welcome to Threads of Time, the time-traveling RPG that made waves at Tokyo Game Show last year. Rio Games, the team behind Threads of Time, is a passionate group of 90s JRPG fans who spent countless after-school hours journeying through iconic games like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy. From the amazing cast of characters to the eternally memorable soundtracks, the Rio Games team is on an adventure to capture the magic we remember from those timeless classics. Today, the team is excited to announce a fresh face joining the Threads of Time party, Barza, a daring sky pirate planning a heist in 1000 AD. Except they may have bitten off more than they can chew. So before we go, please wishlist Threads of Time, and thank you for watching.
I saw, Jared, your comment there, and I pinned it while the trailer was on. Chrono Trigger is my second favorite game of all time. And Threads of Fate nails that. Am I disappointed that it's currently not listed for PlayStation? Absolutely, because I am a PlayStation fiend, as everyone can probably tell with the where are they? The sacred symbols right there. Plenty of PlayStation paraphernalia in the background. Love it. Love a classic JRPG, especially one that's got Chrono Trigger vibes. Anyway, that is the game of the week, and I'm going to try and embed one in the show every single Thursday. I did think about doing Death Stranding 2, but I thought it would be unfair to put people through a 10-minute long Kojima trailer. Especially if you're not into video games, that is a lot of really quirky random shit for you to sit through. Let's do a score check here where the Tigers are still up by 5 points, 14 minutes to go. This is going to be cinema for the remainder of the match. Any other questions in the chat before we wrap things up? Because that is the final segment. I'll field some questions if they pop up as we wrap up, but I will go through some final show notes here. Thank you, everyone, for having watch along. No, I'll need to get myself inside. To be honest, I need to get inside and focus on some dad duties, but we will, to the point of watch-alongs, we will do a range of watch-alongs, I think, over the course of the year. It is something we are looking into, mostly around Cats games. And I think if it weren't a Thursday night, then I'd probably stick this one out. But being a work night and my wife's in there doing some work at the moment for her photography business, if you ever need a professional photographer, family photos, maternity shoots, weddings, etc., please let me know and I'll pass her details on. She is best in class, and I'm not just saying that because she's my wife. But anyway, she's in there working. I might try and get inside and I'll just kind of low-key watch it on the phone while we hang out and watch some Seinfeld or something like that. All right. Tigers are going hard, and they're up by 6 points now, so at least we've got an even goal in this thing. The wheels have completely fallen off for Carlton. When was their last goal? Early in the third quarter. Prior to that, it was halfway through the second. They're a mess. All right. Thank you, everyone, for having tuned in tonight, whether you're one of the many in the chat watching this live or you are catching it after. Oh, my God, a Tigers goal. Whether you're watching this live or after the fact, this is crazy. Or whether you're watching it after the fact, thank you everyone for having tuned in tonight. If you've enjoyed the show, please make sure to support what we're doing at the Hoops Crew. Subscribe, like the video, tell your friends and family, get them onto the channel. If they're Geelong supporters especially, we want them here. Like I mentioned before, there are options like the Discord, which I posted in the link in the show notes before, in the chat before. consider jumping through that link to the Discord. We can join the community and talk to us on an ongoing basis. It's not just about the live shows. We want to see you and hear from you as often as we possibly can. And we will get a post out there asking about who is going to the game and proposing a potential meetup. Maybe somewhere in the Selwood stand near the standing room would be a good option, I think. But we'll deal with that when the time comes. If you enjoyed it, continue to comment. We want to hear more of your thoughts as we are doing these shows live or after the fact. It's really, really exciting to hear from you, to build this community, to share thoughts with you, to hear your opinions as well. I'm talking at a camera for over an hour sometimes, and it's a long time to talk to myself. So it's awesome when I'm able to wax with you. Thank you so much for everything you do. Make sure to join Postgame Live on Saturday night, where you can chat to Ben. You can jump in and actually talk to him whilst many people are buzzing away in the chat too. It's awesome. It's an awesome time. Love for you to be there. Please make sure, if you haven't already, follow me on socials. That's Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, at Paul James Games is where you'll find me. Would love to hear from you there. I'm not using the platforms as much at the moment. I'm kind of flat out with work, Hoops Crew stuff, video game work, not getting as much time to kind of get busy on the socials, but love to hear from you there. The Hoops Crew you'll also find at the Hoops Crew. Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, again for your support of the show. It was awesome it's awesome to work with you, and thank you for promoting and supporting all that we do. Finally, there is the Patreon. If you are not a Patreon member, please consider becoming one. For the cost of $5 a month, that's a cup of coffee. For the cost of $5 a month, you'll get access to exclusive content, early access content, and extended content that you'll find on the Patreon there. The Chaps Shack Cats do extended shows all the time. We have plenty of exclusive shows there. I will do the scratching post, especially once we get a round one game under the belt. I'll be doing the scratching post there as well. Lots of cool stuff to be found on the Patreon. Check that out as well. Thank you, everyone, for jumping in tonight and talking about the Cats, talking about the Richmond and Carlton game, and all of the other big topics in football. This is kind of crazy what's happening at the moment in the Richmond and Carlton game, and I can't wait to get in and see it. Thank you, everyone, for jumping in tonight. Peter Campbell summed it up perfectly there with kick straight win games. Could not agree any more with you if I tried. Looking forward to chatting to you all either on Postgame Live on Saturday with Ben or on Sunday night where we go live for the Paul James Show once again. So here is your slate going forward. Saturday, 5 p.m. Postgame Live begins. Very accessible time slot. If you've got your family, bring them on board. Scream and shout about a Cats win. Sorry, two things. Patreon, $6 a month. Thank you for clarifying. Sorry, my mistake. Very well worth it. Absolutely. Thank you, Energizer Red, for pumping that one up. It's not me blowing smoke. So Postgame Live, 5 p.m. on Saturday. Stay tuned for a reaction video that I will then have go live on the Sunday morning. People have been checking out the reaction videos en masse over the last 12 months whenever one goes up after a match, win, lose, or draw. And I try to get really analytical about the game. Sunday night, there'll be a reaction on the Paul James Show. So expect something live there. Just like this, we can chat live with the community. Looking forward to doing that. Monday, Ben will be back with the tipping point. Again, trying to justify his strange decision-making process for his footy tips. On Tuesday night, the Chaps Chat Cats at 8:30. Thank you, everyone, for having tuned in tonight. Very much appreciate it. We've gone nearly an hour and a half. It's been a blast as always. Looking forward to doing it all again on Sunday. But until next time, remain Geelong strong. Oh, go the Tigers. And I'll see you later.